Hello, everybody. This is Jane Rachel, and today I'm doing a topic that is very personal for me and actually one of the major motivations for starting this website. And that's talking about the adverse side effects of the line of antibiotics called the fluoroquinolones. I only took 4 antibiotic pills of Levaquin that led to the worst 4 years of my life that I'm really starting to just get over now. I want to start by saying I'm not someone who is against all doctors and all medications. I have way too many doctors in my family for that, is my Doug and Heather, who I'm speaking to today, know. But this particular line of antibiotics is especially dangerous and in most cases not necessary. Just to frame what we're talking about when we say fluoroquinolones, the most popular ones are Cipro and Levaquin, but there are also ones called Faxtiv, I think, Neuroxin, Floxin, Avalox. You might want to Google anytime you get a new medication. It's a good idea to Google and see what it is. These medications have at least, I think, 3 to 4 black box warnings on them, and we'll talk a little more about what that means and the symptoms later. And overall, the FDA and others are saying they really should not be prescribed unless other antibiotics don't work. Yet, really scarily, I would say that only about, just in my experience, only about 50% of doctors even know about these warnings, and others are still giving it out like candy for things like UTIs, stomach bugs, which they are really not warranted to do. Very, very quickly, I'm going to tell you my story just because it's elsewhere on the website. So I'm just going to do it very briefly. But on the 4th day of taking Levaquin, I was walking to work, and I will remember this vividly. I used to walk to and from work. And while walking to work, all of a sudden my legs felt really heavy, like they were bogged in cement. And I didn't know what to make of it. And a few days later, that feeling moved to my arms. I quickly Googled and was amazed to find that an antibiotic could do that. And I stopped taking the antibiotic after the 4th pill. But it continued. The symptoms continued and moved to my neck. Just my whole body felt heavy, and I could barely walk, type, text, hold a book. And doctors first thought I had an exacerbation of myasthenia gravis. That's an autoimmune disease that I already had that causes muscle pain and weakness that was completely in remission before the Levaquin and is contraindicated for Levaquin. But doctors soon realized that what I was going through was just too painful and too different than the myasthenia. So they thought maybe I picked up another autoimmune neuromuscular disease. They thought potentially Guillain-Barré disease, which I think is possible, but I do believe, if so, that the Levaquin contributed to that. Others thought it was just a side effect of the Levaquin, and sadly, a lot of doctors thought I was just exaggerating and it was in my head. And while the doctors were divided on what the cause was, they all said I would be better in no time, like weeks to months. And it really took about 1.5 to 2 years to start feeling improvement. And now 4 years, almost 4 years later, I would say I'm about 70% better. So I can walk, I can type, but I still get tired when I do more than 6,000 steps a day, or when I type or I'm on the computer for more than an hour. So I'm still not where I want to be, but I'm getting there. And that brings me to my 2 guests today. They were 2 of the 3 people who were there for me in those darkest moments of my life, when friends and family like just didn't know what to do with me, were sick of hearing me cry. I would reach out to both of them, both who I met, I think, just through the internet. I would reach out to them because there's nothing more helpful than talking to someone who's been there and who's recovered. So they were both so inspiring to me. And I told both of them before we started recording that I truly believe this. I don't think I would be in this shape here today without them, because whenever I called them crying after talking to them, I felt so much hope. So with that, why don't we start with Heather? What happened to you after you took, and which antibiotic did you take?
So I took ciprofloxacin, and I'd had a UTI, and now what we know about UTIs and ciprofloxacin, probably wasn't warranted to have that strong of a medication. There were other options, but that's what they went with. And I'd taken it one other time and kind of noticed a little something. I think I just kind of thought, oh, I'm just recovering. And the second time, though, that I took it, it was about 2 weeks after I'd finished my course, and I was preparing a meal for the holidays. And I was in the kitchen, and suddenly I had to hold on to the counter in order to keep standing.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, wait a minute, this is kind of weird. And the next day, it was Christmas Day, and I just started Googling, because I was going, you know what? I'm just going to look into Cipro side effects. And there was this whole thing about muscular weakness, and all the things that, and the pain, the Achilles tendon pain, all the things that I was experiencing. And the other thing that was starting to be explained was I had started noticing I wasn't sleeping well, that I was having a really hard time getting more than about 2 hours of sleep per night, which, that's kind of crazy making. And then, and then also I noticed like I started to feel dissociative, like I was looking at myself from the outside. And when I would be driving, I'd have to go pick up my husband after work. And when I'd be driving, if a car went by me, it was like all my nerve endings went, which is has never happened to me before. And as time went, it was almost like we would wake up and we'd say, what's the flavor of the day? What is wrong today? Because it moved on me. Some days there would be something where like I couldn't function with this hand, but then the next day my knee would collapse. And then the next day I would have complete inability to look at light. And so it moved. It's like it migrated.
Wow. Did you ever have like the sleep problems or any of that before, or are these all brand new symptoms?
Brand new, nothing like this ever in my life, which is why I was like going, okay, I have to look at the Cipro, because it's the only thing that I've done different. So
go ahead.
So I started, honestly, I started looking on the internet, because it was, Christmas Day, and I started looking at it, and I showed my husband these. I said, I'm having all this. And I found, a couple websites that were really helpful with people that were going through this already. And basically it took about, I'd say it was like kind of like about 6 months of really kind of throwing the spaghetti against the wall to find the drug, find the, not drugs, but the supplements, the procedures that really helped. It took some time, but when I did I discovered that basically in my case, I know it's not true for everybody, but in my case, I had all the symptoms of magnesium being just stripped out of me. Because it has like 800 different firings, it was going to take some time to get that all built back up. So in the meantime, I did go to my nurse practitioner, and I said, this is what I'm seeing. And she said something really interesting. And she said, well, she said, you're feeling better because of magnesium in your case, right? And I said, yeah. And she said, that's interesting, because recently I prescribed magnesium to somebody who had fibromyalgia, and they start to feel better too, which I don't know that that's true, but it's starting to make me wonder how many other ailments are out there that have been undiagnosed, or people just don't know where'd this come from all of a sudden. And it would be interesting to connect it back to, hey, 2 weeks before you had the beginnings of your symptoms, did you take any fluoroquinolones? And I think we would see masses of people that's true for.
I agree. One of the things it does, there is research showing that it depletes magnesium. And I do agree that a lot of times, not everybody, but when people have fibromyalgia, it could be, if you traced it back, they say accidents or illnesses trigger it, but maybe they were given a fluoroquinolone when they had those accident or illness. What out of all those symptoms, what do you think was the most difficult to deal with?
The dissociative was really difficult, because I've just been really emotionally, psychologically very blessed. I have a really deep faith, and I have a lot of inner peace. And I think what was fascinating to me, and it has since returned, but I didn't realize this could happen. I have a pretty deep faith, and I can really feel my faith inside. I can really actually feel it. And
amazing.
But when I was floxed, I couldn't feel it.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to me, that mechanism that kind of it regulates understanding faith was actually something that was messed with in my brain. So that, and brain fog, of course.
Yeah.
But and then also a big thing was just not having any kind of ability to really be there for, I had 2 high schoolers at the time. And so it was, it was a big learning process for all of us. God came through, he taught us all a lot, but it was really a lot to ask of them, to be a senior and a junior in high school, and to be, basically have been with me as I was. So yeah,
I
but
think
God got us through.
yeah, absolutely. Thank God for that.
Yeah.
Because
Thank
I
God for
remember,
God.
I think I remember you telling me that for like 6 months you were just on the couch. So when you've got
I
high
was on the
school,
couch because me and Hallmark.
yep, and
Me
you
and
got two,
Hallmark. That's all I could handle.
yeah, but with 2 teenagers, like they don't want mom on the couch, right? So
No, no,
it's got to be devastating for the whole family. So,
it
so
was.
Doug, what antibiotic and what were, thank you, Heather, for sharing that. Doug, which antibiotic and what were your symptoms?
Okay. Well, the demon was Levaquin, like you.
Yep.
But unlike you, I was a little denser, thicker in the skull. I took 3 bottles.
No. How much did you, wait, so how much did you say? 3 bottles?
Which is 30 pills. And I didn't draw the conclusion that that's what it was. I was walking with my wife, and as we do, I try to stay very fit before this. Even I'm an avid bike rider and I work out and things like that. So, I can't blame that anyway, and I don't want to. But we were walking, and my legs would start snapping back, and I'd lose balance, and I would just go back side to side a little. And it's, Bonnie, it's like my legs forgot how to walk, and it just got worse. I got very quickly to the point where I could barely shuffle. I remember trying to walk up a flight of stairs, and I had to just use the rail, and had to just rest for a long time at the top. I started falling down often. Anything off camber, any gravelly surface, and I may end up on the ground. Long way from where I was. Still no thought of it being the Levaquin. I started going to the neurologist. I went to 2 different ones, and a lot of other doctors got all the tests, the MRIs, all that, and they were saying, "Oh, you may have Lou Gehrig's, you may have
Scary.
just different thing, MS." They said, you let's test you for MS," and all that came up negative. They still couldn't figure it out, and it's probably 3 months later that a friend of mine that I ride with, a doctor, an internist, said, "Doug, Levaquin causes neuropathy." I forgot to mention I was numb from lower back down to my toes, completely in the legs. It was weird. They were there.
Wow.
And end up losing leg strength. I had tight tendons, and ruptured tendons seems to be one of the more common calling cards of this thing, although
Yeah.
it's so hard to put it in a basket. Look at Heather's issues, and there's so everybody has different things, so it's hard to put it in a basket and point a finger at it and blame the antibiotic. What I've come up with, it seems to attack where I've been injured or where I was weakest. I don't know, Heather, if you agree with that at all, but I've had lower back issues and sciatic issues and stuff like that. Not that my legs were weak, but that's where the nerves went, and that's what it took down. Well, this doctor said, you have neuropathy. So then he said, Levaquin causes that. And I went back and I looked at when I was taking it and when it hit, and it was exactly the same time. So now I had, at least the demon to go after. So I don't know if you want me to go any farther into the getting better or not. That's probably something.
I'm just curious, did any of all before you, your friend, the internist, did any other doctor even think of it as a possibility that it was?
No, the doctor who prescribed the Levaquin for bronchitis, his lung doctor, I went back to him and I, I was hobbling in there, barely walking, and he goes, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I don't know." And he goes, "Uh-oh." He said, "Come in my office," because he didn't want anyone else to hear, because you might have multiple sclerosis. And he's the one who gave me the thing. I mean,
Yeah,
it,
that's
and so and I met with indifference. The two neurologists were, once I told them about it, I could see okay, not, oh wow, this is, although the neurologist said 30% of their issues they can never put a finger on. Well,
mine said that too. Mine said 50%. I was like, really? What other like profession in the world? He said 50% of the time we can't figure it out, so don't feel bad.
I know.
Like, what other fields 50% you can't figure it out?
I
It's
know. Well,
ridiculous.
I think we can help them, nail about 20 or 30% of that.
Yeah, at least.
At least. Doug, just how long did it last?
It's 3 3/4 years later now. I call myself 95% healed. It has been yes, thank you. All of us get a hand clap. It has been the struggle of my life. I hooked into a doctor in California who had been floxed and who now does seminars to doctors, thank God. And I also went for stem cell up in Minnesota. That helped immensely. I would say, that my faith is strong and it has helped me. And it may sound Pollyannish, but keep a pit bull attitude and I will get better attitude and just keep going after it. And that is the fuel behind getting better. And, I go to PT and do things they suggest. And I ask specifically for my weaknesses and let's attack that. And that was most recently. So even 3.5 years out, I feel I have, gotten better.
That's amazing. I remember when you were 65% better and I was still really bad. And I was thinking like, I can't wait to get 65% better. So to hear that you're 95%, and I think it's okay to give a shout out to two doctors, Dr. Galili and Dr. Hansen. I think those were the two doctors you mentioned who are at least very knowledgeable, because a lot of doctors are not knowledgeable on this issue at all. Heather, I don't know if I quite got the timeline. Like, how long did it take you to get better? And would you say that you're close to 100% better now?
Yeah, I am close to, I'd say I'm about 99% better.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yay! That's
is.
amazing.
It is amazing. And it's, what, I think the thing that the hope to give to people with that is that it's 99% better, but I had no doctors helping me. I will say I had information that doctors had written about, but I didn't have any doctor that I could go to. They were a little pricey for my abilities.
Yeah.
But because obviously insurance doesn't cover this.
No.
And so, but so my timeline was it was November 22nd, 2017, when I basically had my first pill, and then it was so up till today. So like by the time that I was talking with you, I remember I was probably I think I was in that 70% range. And so a lot has happened in the last couple of years. So yeah, it's taken nearly 4 years.
That's amazing. You two are my inspiration, because I'm still only, I would say, it's so hard to guess. I mean, it's a random number, but I'm just, because I feel like I can be on my feet for an hour and a half, which is before I couldn't get from one end of my apartment to another. So that's huge. But prior to Levaquin, I walked to and from work. So, or I can type for an hour. I used to type for 10 hours. So I'm gonna catch up to you, and Doug. That is my goal. I do want to go over just some of the possible symptoms, because everybody's different. And so I don't know if like right now, I believe there's 4 black box warnings on it. One is the tendon rupture, particularly the Achilles. Who in a million years would think that you could rupture an Achilles tendon from taking an antibiotic? Like I certainly like never crossed my mind. I thought antibiotic was the most safest drug you could take.
I thought
Well, and it's
that,
interesting to me just the sheer number of people that report that. And it's
yes.
everybody says it's their left one.
Oh, that's
You know?
weird. That is weird. And what's interesting is it doesn't have to be right away. So that like, so I have a family member who was a doctor. This was years ago, was prescribing it, and then playing tennis, he ruptured his Achilles. And
Wow.
then he never pursued, then he started researching it and never prescribed it again. But what's interesting is it's not just while you're taking it, it could be sometime after. So you don't normally put 2 and 2 together. But
Right.
that, I mean, the FDA has put that on the, you know, on the box. There's a black box warning. Peripheral neuropathy, Doug, which you said you have, the seizures and mental health. Heather, I've heard from a lot of people, dissociation, like people who've never had mental health problems before,
Right.
hallucinations and all sorts of really
Anxiety.
scary stuff. I think aortic aneurysm, which can kill you, is also on there. And those are an exacerbation of myasthenia gravis, which is what I originally had. I do think some people with muscle weakness might have myasthenia gravis and didn't know it. So they might have had like such mild cases, but then you take one of these and it unmasks it. Something retinal detachment, hypoglycemia, widespread muscle. I'm looking at my notes, widespread muscle, because there's so many. I like widespread muscle pain and weakness. Who would have thought an antibiotic could do all that? Especially, and it's so unnecessary when there's all these other antibiotics that can probably do the trick much safer. And there's no reason to take one of these if one of the others is possible. So and it amazes me that despite all these black box warnings, I would say I tell every doctor, I know Doug does, I'm sure you do, Heather. I would say 50% of doctors are like, yep, you're right, we don't ever prescribe it here. And then other 50% of the doctors are like, what are you talking about? It's an antibiotic. And it's not their fault. They're not taught that. I think, Heather, you were telling me that someone wanted to send a Dear Doctor letter and that wasn't done. So, right. So it's not really their fault.
Yeah. They
It's
don't
about
have to
education.
be contacted. They have the black box warning because it's through the lawsuits and they don't have to be contacted. You know, they don't have to contact the doctors. I have one to add that is a kind of a weird one that I looked up when I started seeing it happen to me, but my singing voice went away.
That's
Oh, wow.
maybe something
Yeah,
with your,
I mean, I was never
vocal
like, I
cords?
mean, I was a singer enough that I was in theater and I would sing and stuff, but I hadn't done a lot of singing over the years. But what I noted was during that time when I started to try to sing, it was like something had changed my vocal cords. And I looked it up and that was a thing. There was other people that were experiencing it too.
Vocal cords are a muscle, right? When I had the myasthenia gravis, my voice definitely changed. And, you know, one person I read, it only affected his hands, but I think he was some sort of musician and he could never play again.
Oh.
Also something to keep in mind too, because I've heard this from lots of people, like when I tell everyone I know, and a lot of people are like, I took Cipro all the time, never had a problem. So they're like, they plan on continuing taking Cipro. In fact, I had the conversation with my mail carrier. She's like, I took Cipro like 15 times. It gets rid of my UTI every time. I'm sorry, Jane, it works for me. I never had a problem. But the thing is you can take it many times in the past, right? And we don't know, like either people have different thresholds. So my threshold was only 4 pills and someone else's might be, you know, the 16th time they take it, or it could be underlying conditions. Like I think that in my case, I had something called food poisoning, Campylobacter underlying. And I think what it might do is the antibiotic might kill everything else and allow whatever underlying thing it is to grow. So it could be what's going on in your body at the time, but I've certainly heard many people who had no problems at all taking it for years, and then all of a sudden, like, waha. So just because it was okay in the past doesn't mean it's okay now.
Jane, for those out there that don't know much about fluoroquinolone antibiotics, they're the synthetic antibiotic that was developed, and the way they take down I guess it's the bacteria is through the DNA and mitochondria that attack that and destroy it. And forever, FDA and everything said, well, it doesn't do that to humans, but guess what? That's what it does. And from there it can affect anything. And, it's
Absolutely.
hard to blame it. So we can't, definitely point the finger at it. And FDA and doctors need huge studies that prove things before they move on something. So that's what we're up against.
Exactly. So for both of you, just any advice to either someone recently diagnosed or doctors, or just to anyone, like what do you want people to know?
Get on the internet, Facebook groups, website groups. Don't dwell on the bad side. There's some self-pity folks out there, and some people who just or even the sue happy people. Stay focused on the fix, and find somebody and hook into them that has been taken down and is better. And that's who you follow. I have an angel too, and her name is Tori, and I met her on a Facebook group, and she helped me immensely. And Tony, excuse me.
Yeah.
She knows who she is.
Yeah, she knows who she is.
Exactly. And I mean, and it's true. Someone who's like as great as friends and family can be, if they haven't been in there before, there's nothing like talking to someone. And so I didn't know either of you. I found you on the internet, and there are people out there who want to help. So definitely reach out to them. Heather, anything to add to what Doug said about advice or what you want people to know?
Well, the ironic thing is that I was actually leaving Facebook the day that you put in a contact, Jane. It was my last day. I was shutting down Facebook, and primarily because of what Doug referred to is that what you really have to do is find positive information, and people that there's probably more now out there even than when we were all struck.
Yeah.
There's probably more articles, but I'd gotten hold of some people that they'd worked with this and they had websites, and I would be on those websites for as long as it carried me to a good place. When it would start going into things where there would be people that were saying, I'll never recover, I just couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And I would have to instead I had to keep I know prayer saved me, because my husband would be up in the middle of the night praying for me. My kids would be praying for me. People would come and pray for me. And I would be proclaiming, scripture over myself. But I would also, as we would pray, I really felt led to certain supplements and certain ways to get better. And, along the way, kind of discovering, oh, wow, there's something also thyroid stuff. I guess I got to deal with that now. It was really like, it really was stepping stones. It was building one on top of the other. And so I think that, surrounding yourself with people that are ahead of you, that can also spiritually kind of give you something.
Yes.
But also that kind of knowing when it's really okay, if you're on a site for a while and they've helped you and they get to a point where it becomes more taxing, it's really okay to take a step back and go, I'm healing now. I'm going to go and watch Hallmark. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I had to do. That's what, it's really okay to do that. And just knowing you will get better. Most of us get better. Most of us do get better. The ones, if you're still around, within a few months of it happening, you have every possibility of getting better.
Yes.
That would be what I would say.
Yeah, I echo just what both of you say. There's the websites are amazing, but they are scary, right? And some people like these, for us, these were very long traumatic experiences, but I've also heard from people who I think someone I know had it for 4 weeks, right? But you see these websites and you panic. I do think a majority of people get better on their own without going to the doctors who cost a lot of money. I think a lot of people do get better within 6 months, and then there's another group of people that get better in a year. So there's no reason to freak out, because when you go to those websites, there are people, the few people who never get better
Yeah.
are who you hear from. So the first thing
Yeah.
I would say is don't panic. In fact, for the first couple of months, maybe just relax and see if it goes away on its own. I would recommend just some vitamin deficiency testing. I believe there now is a good test for magnesium, which there wasn't years ago, because that's an easy thing you can do to get better.
Well, and you really need to have the red blood cell test for that.
Yeah.
So it's something that you do have to go to a certain testing site for that, for it to be really accurate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
there's other calling cards of this malady. Your vitamin D, and I don't know if both of you say the same thing, but mine was down in the dirt. And that, and testosterone, and even women have it too, and it's down in the dirt, and the magnesium. And that points its finger at fluoroquinolones. If you don't know what you have, and you have chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or any number of other things, and you don't know what it is, look at your fluoroquinolone usage and see what vitamin deficiencies you have, because you can probably figure it out from those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I think I was just going to say that vitamin D, magnesium, I've heard testosterone too, like they deplete that. And those are at least easy things that are not expensive and that your regular doctor can test you for.
Mitochondria.
Yeah. My own little bias. I think some of the people who never or don't get better should be looking at the myasthenia gravis and the Guillain-Barré that doctors miss unless you're in a wheel. They're not going to test you that unless you're in a ventilator on a wheelchair. So I do think some people have mild cases of that. If you find yourself, a year out where you haven't gotten any better at all, then it might be time to look at the doctors out there who specialize specifically in this, but they are, not covered by insurance. So, there's the Dr. Hansons and the Dr. Galili's, they're amazing. But for some people, you just get better in time. Most people get better in time and maybe some supplements. So don't panic. And the best thing though is don't take them if you can avoid them. And from now on, as a doctor's daughter, I just took whatever doctors gave me. I Google everything first. So,
we are our own best doctors.
We are our own best doctors. Exactly. Just, if there's anything either of you two want to add, go ahead. But thank you, not just for this interview, but just for everything you both have done for me. Is there anything I forgot? Anything?
I just want to say, Jane, this is a two-way street. Me talking to you when you needed it, boy, does that help me too. It really does. And
I agree.
You help others. And
that's nice to hear, because I really feel like, at least with you two, it was the other way around, because I was always, because you were ahead of me, so I was always calling you hysterically crying, and I don't know that I was much support to you, but
oh yeah, you are. It just, and I'm just knowing you're helping somebody, my gosh, you got to the point where you help somebody, Amazing.
I agree. Even now, like sometimes I still feel sorry for myself at 70% better, but I will talk to people who are 25% better. And I remember back to like Doug, when you were 70% better, and it's like, it's a circle, you help people who are down the road, and eventually you all get to the right place. And hopefully eventually no one will be in this position because doctors will stop prescribing them. That is my wish. So thank you both.